Service Alliance community, how y'all doing today?
Should be another fantastic day. So
nice, and it's starting to be a little bit sunny here in Chicagoland.
yeah, it's still dark in Denver, but it's gonna be another hot one. We're not gonna cool off until Saturday. We'll be in the 80s. We've been in like the mid 90s, which is like hot for this time of year, so everyone's complaining.
All sorts of tech issues. My camera just froze again. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, well, you may notice we have a special guest with us today. Down in the bottom, also in Chicagoland, about 45 minutes north of me. Some of y'all know him, Mr. James Dolbeare, AAA Appliance Chicagoland.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good, man. Glad to have you along.
Nice to be here.
This is a topic that I know that you and I have, at passionate lengths, gone around on. And so we're excited to bring you in to share with the community on this topic.
You bet.
It's good stuff. So, sorry for the delay. Mac is great until Mac isn't great. And when it's not great, boy, does it fight every step of the way. So, but we are here, we are going, and I'll pray us in, and I'm going to bring a scripture that's loosely applies to what we're talking about. It's one of those scriptures that I often wonder, is it meant to be more of an application than literal? I don't know. We'll see. Oh, here we go. I'll pray us in. Dear Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this chance to gather together. And Father, just let the frustrations of technology and the craziness wash away, Father. We just, we thank you that we get together as brothers and sisters and just share today. And Father, we pray you bless the conversation, and that if someone needs this and it's helpful for them, Father, we just pray that they would hear it. Pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 And I froze again. Good night, almighty. It's going to be one of those days. At least y'all can hear me, so that's the important part.
Take a snapshot.
I don't know why it does that. Yeah, no, it's still frozen. Anyway, good morning, George. Good morning. So the scripture that I am bringing today, if my face ever unfreezes, is Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Oof. All right.
And we lost him.
I'm here.
He's buffering.
Being ridiculous. All right. Well, here we go. When all else fails, you give in and you use the old FaceTime camera.
Yeah. Looks like it's fighting us all. Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, when technology wants to fight, it's going to fight. So today we're talking about third-party warranty companies, and really warranty companies in general. We were posed the question last week, should I work for a warranty company? That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
There's a lot to consider. And James, I know you're very passionate about this. You've actually you spent half of your class at ASTI sharing about warranty.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Yes. And remember, the class subject was cost of doing business, and an application about being profitable in your business. So, and that was really the focus, is how you get to making a profit. How do you determine what your rates should be in a fair and appropriate way, reflecting your own individual expenses, because the expenses across the country are going to vary. And in the territory that you're in your personal circumstances within your company are going to vary. So you have to use your own numbers without manipulating them in a biased way. In other words, look at them as stark and honestly as to what they are. Don't build in expenses that shouldn't be there. Don't take your Oahu vacation home and plug it into a business expense. A 35-foot boat, those sorts of things that are not business related. You take everything that's actually business related and you reflect your cost of doing business on that. And then what you're alluding to is the tangent conversation is, okay, how do we apply what we've learned when we determine our cost of business? And you can apply it in a variety of ways. You can use budget projections, for example, if you want to add to the fleet or hire another technician or buy another building or something like that. So, or for example, attend and that's usually kind of where we get into it. We started, frankly, on a budget projection to attend a conference. And how, frankly, inexpensive it is. You look at it collectively, like, okay, if I'm going to go to San Antonio, I'm going to be there for 3-4 days, 5 days, then I got to fly there and all that. You can build those into your budget. And it winds up being kind of like 13 cents a ticket. It's ironic how little it costs you, but you can use budget projections for that reason. Another projection is on a third-party warranty, because as Zach mentioned, it is a loaded question. Should I do warranty? Should I do manufacturer warranty? Should I do third-party warranty at all? And the answer is not a hard yes or no under any circumstances. You have to look at your own numbers. You analyze where your break even is on your cost of business. Then you have to add in a profit. You're here to make a profit. In many respects, we are a caring profession. So a lot of guys they get bogged down on the technology, and we're fixing this and fixing that. And while it's commonplace to think of a nurse or a doctor as in a helping profession, but we are too, frankly. When we have a young mother that a refrigerator broke down and she's got breast milk that can spoil, we're kind of being a little bit of a hero there. We're getting that thing up and running. And if you care about that customer, that's really the first and foremost, care about that customer, you will get everything right. You get the diagnosis right. You'll get back there right away. You'll get the correct parts ordered, and you will have a fast turnaround because you're trying to take care of her. The money and the satisfaction and the business growth follow that behavior. So
that's kind of why I shared the scripture that I did, because sometimes with warranty companies, if you haven't done the groundwork that James is talking about, it does become, which master are you going to serve, right? Are you actually going to care about the customer? Are you actually going to help that customer and care for that customer and love that customer in the way that we try to love our COD customers? Or are you going to serve the warranty company who is actually your customer? And if you haven't done the legwork, then that becomes, which master are you going to serve?
Correct. And other than the big guy, most of them are pretty cruel. And the fact of the matter is you wind up, borrowing from Paul to pay Peter. And in this case, if you have got yourself undervalued and you've gotten yourself into a contract agreement that is below or at break even, you're going to have to make up those losses. And the way you make up those losses is by charging your paying customers. Deficits have to be made up. Otherwise, you're done. And sometimes we look at the financial analysis of some places when I'm working with consultant, and I can see in their financials, they were out of business 2.5 years ago. They just didn't know it. They're never going to recover. And part of the insidious part of this financial analysis is the margin that we always get into here. That would be your profit. Okay. And it's the recovery that's very difficult because people tend to think in terms of whole numbers, just like when you think in terms of flat rate versus time and material. People actually think in terms of 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. This is how we live as a human being. That's not how your business bills at all. Our business takes almost half of that year away. In reality, you're only able to bill that much. And I go through that, obviously, in my classes in a detailed way. But suffice it to say, and I don't know that you necessarily want to take my word for it, but Zach has been there, so he can attest that I actually go through the numbers, and it's not a sophisticated math class. I know everybody likes, when they get into math, they start rolling their eyes in the back of their head and they get epileptic. I get it. But we don't drill down into the financials that difficult. It's not that much math. It's very basic. Addition and subtraction is really what it is. But suffice it to say, you're taking your 365 days a year and you're breaking it down to 235. And if you think about it, you take out your weekends, your holidays, your vacation days, your training days, your holidays. When you're sick, you're off. You take out all those regular practical days. Out of 365 days, you're down to 235. And then of those 235, let's say you're working an 8-hour day. You're not billing 8 hours. Just think about it. You're driving, you're picking up parts, you're doing a parts order, you're researching a part, you're going back on a job you thought was done. Because how that is. We never have enough time to do it right the first time, but all the time in the world to do it correct the second time or third, So you have all that time that's lost. So you don't even actually have 8 hours a day. You may have 6 if you're lucky. And the fancy term for that is productivity ratio. But one way to put that everybody can relate to is a door knock or a stop versus a completed ticket. So you may have 10 stops in a day where you arrive at 10 locations, and one's a part order, one is a diagnostic that you have to go back on, another one is a callback because the customer didn't follow, they're still over something and they didn't understand it, so you had to go back and do a little hand holding. So when you mix that up, the bottom line is that how many tickets at the end of that day are done and over with that you do not have to revisit. That's a completed ticket. So you look at that ratio between stops and completed tickets. And if people are genuinely honest, they look at that, they drill down, they'll find they may be at 60 or 70%, which is what I'm saying is that you may have completed 6 calls and done 10 stops. All right. Everybody thinks, I do a 90% complete. Well, that's a bit of a stretch. I suppose if you had a fully struck, you have a truck that's fully stocked, one brand, one manufacturer, a very tight area, you could have everything you need on hand. But if you're doing multiple brands across the territory, multiple product lines, like, you have refrigeration techs, and then you've got, a laundry techs and cooking techs, and then you've got all brand techs. So that throws it into the mix because, you're working on a refrigerator. Now you're working on a washer. Now you're working on an oven and all the variables that go with that. So getting a completed call is no small feat. It can be very difficult. Now, the target, of course, is to complete every one you arrive at. That's, what they call a FCC for short, but first call complete. That's the target. But anyway, all of this math that I'm talking about when you're talking about completed calls, that all is divided into your expenses that you pull right off your balance sheet. You guys generally all have QuickBooks, or you have some sort of financial monitoring system. You can go right into your QuickBooks, look at your expenses, and divide those hours into it. And that would give you your break even. And what I'm suggesting here is that everybody, absolutely everybody, cannot afford not to know what that break even is. If you're not sure or you're fuzzy about it, come and see me in San Antonio in February. It'll be the best hour. I mean, I usually do a couple classes on it, but it'll be the best hour and a half, 3 hours you've ever invested in your life, because it will save you. I guarantee you. I've had people that have been in my class come back thinking it was relatively basic, and years later they're just, hey, James, you saved my keister. I was going down and I didn't know why. I couldn't understand why. And this is the why, and how we get into the warranty is a lot of times the guys don't know that. I mean, they know how to field strip a transmission with a vice grip and can't see anything, upside down, with a C clamp on a water hose so it doesn't leak. They know that, but to read their own financial statement, they haven't a clue. And the warranty companies and the third-party companies, guys, they have MBAs running around there. They have guys that are steeped in mathematics. They have no problem understanding what our cost of doing business is. In fact, they know it almost better than we do. They've analyzed it. And
They don't know you, but they know you.
yeah, they know you. They know you inside out. They know what it costs to deliver the services. And so what they're trying to do is undercut the cost of those services. And that's where the problem is. There are some partners that are good partners, and there's some partners that are bad partners, right? So, and that's true socially, that's true in life and marriage, and it's certainly true in business. And so you need to know what your break even is. You absolutely have to know that. And you cannot sign into a contract that's at or below break even, or you have literally condemned your business to go out of business. There's no way around it.
And one other thing to like have to this concept of, if you are not running warranty work and you are wanting to jump into doing, a third party warranty, you do have to realize that a little bit of your expenses is going to rise because you're going to need more office staff that is going to take care of that. Normal CODs don't take as much office help. So you also have to factor in, hey, I might need one more CSR, to my team on your numbers. Because there is so much back end work when you're dealing with warranty stuff to make sure that you are getting paid. So that's another factor. So a lot of, they're almost predatory, on a lot of these home warranty companies, because they're kind of like Home Advisor was. They are grabbing the newest companies out to go ahead and drive their costs down, because that's what they need. They want it done as cheap as possible. It's going to make their bonuses better. Your reps are not really your friend. They're trying to get their bonuses and stuff and get labored down. And sometimes you have to play hardball with them, and that's why, I know Zach and I, we've talked before, don't have all your eggs in one basket, because if you have it all, then you're just going to do whatever they say. If they're going to have a conversation with you and they're like, hey, your numbers are high, we're going to have to go ahead and lower it because your parts, and they're calculating your labor and what parts you're doing, and replacements on units that are, NLA parts, and you're having to replace the unit, and they have a $4,000 option, on an appliance that's getting put up against your numbers, which it's like, is it fair in some points? Because it's like, you only work on what you get. You can't, it's not your fault that you just worked on a 30-year-old refrigerator, that needs to be replaced. And they'll put all those numbers against you, and there's a point in time where you just have to say, no, my numbers are my numbers, because your break even. If you know your numbers, and you just know fair market value of what your services are, like, no, I'm not going to do this for $90 a flat rate. That's not going to make anyone business or make anyone money. You also have to think in aspect of growth in your technicians that you have, because if you're doing warranty and you're doing it too low, then there's no growth for your technicians to make more money. So it gets to where they're maxed out, and then they're like, well, I want to make more money. Like, I'm only making $20 an hour. Like, I could go work for so-and-so and they'll pay me $28 an hour with my experience, and there's no way that you can offer that because you're too low. You're too, close to that break even where there's just no extra money to go around.
So for those of you that are new owners out there, and you're getting in over your head with warranty companies, I'm going to give you a cautionary tale. I wish I would have known James 7 years ago, because I was dead before I started. We had 70% when I took over that business with a warranty company that neither James nor I likes, because they are one of the dirtiest out there. So do your numbers. Ask someone for help. I was dead before I started, and by the time I realized it was too late to pivot.
And have your business structure set up to where you don't need any warranty company. It may be fine if you're just getting in and you really don't have your COD base isn't really clicking too well, then yeah, do American Home Shield, or whomever that's going to pay the bills. But just set yourself up to where you do not need to depend on them. And you're going to get to this point where these warranty companies, if your numbers are good, they will give you as much work as possible. And it gives you a false sense of hope on expanding your business. Say like, well, gosh, I have all this work. Let me go and hire. Take a deep breath on that, like build up properly. I had it, and we've talked about it. I've had my company that I had in Texas and I grew from me to 8 techs within, like a year and a half. And I was 100%, I was like 95% warranty. Like I was getting all my work, from the home warranty, and I would have some people call me off of Google and stuff like that. Horrible business structure. I wasn't making money. I was super stressful. God, 4 CSRs, is ridiculous. It's like now I'm running just as many calls and I have 1.5 CSRs, basically, so you're going to have all of those extra expenses just on the back end of the office. But when stuff went wrong, I got very lucky and I pivoted from Landmark Home Warranty, which was giving me a lot of work, and then they had issues with their system, and I got super lucky. I called up American Home Shield, gave them like what my contract was, and they're like, yep. So it was like turning off one light switch, flipping on another. My company really didn't skip a beat, but like 2 weeks we were like a little slow. And then there again, issues, just with American Home Shield, just on, oh, your prices are high. It's like, dude, I'm flat rated $120 a call, like my labor is like crazy low. And it was just too much, and I ended up tearing it down. And I learned from the mistake of putting all my eggs in one basket, and I'll never do that again. And these warranty companies know that they're dealing with younger companies. They know that they're going off of how naive you are as a business owner, and they think that they can strong arm you. And that's what you need to kind of take away most from this is don't put your eggs in one basket. Don't let them strong arm you. Know your numbers so you can know what you can and can't do. And you can, I'll let Zach and, James go on like what they dealt with, with their warranty companies too.
I think the warranty company we were talking about was paying us all the same damn thing. Like, and we had a fight to even get that.
Yeah.
Some of them are like that. Yes. Some won't.
Yeah, it was beyond ridiculous. They plus they would also have you hold the liability and all that. But that's the other problem. One of the things that people say generically is you shouldn't be above 25 to 30% of your volume should not be warranty. Okay, and I'm grouping that from manufacturer warranty to third party warranty. But there are benefits and detractions from both. One thing about manufacturer warranty is a lot of times guys will rationalize, well, I have tech support. And that's true. You do have factory training, track support. You can a regional service manager you can reach out to. So particularly during escalations. So it's a different sort of relationship. Remember your third-party warranties, they don't do any training. There's no technical support. You barely get the right parts from them. So there's a lot
or
of
no parts at all.
Right, exactly. And you're right. You do have to add CSRs, which is a customer service reps or ladies that are answering the phone or guys. And I can guarantee you that the most demanding clients that you're going to have with regard to a phone are warranty customers because they think they've got a new product or they've got it under warranty. And I don't know what is going on in their minds, but in their human psyche, they think that they can abuse anybody because they have a warranty and they become incredibly demanding. I mean, we had COD customers that are wonderful COD customers or even bad COD customers. They never pull the stuff that these warranty demanding customers do. They just
You were
don't.
supposed to be there before the machine broke.
Exactly.
Didn't you know?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
pay for this service. I need it done like yesterday, and it's like
Right.
it's the
And
complete
you're
opposite.
supposed to handle the escalation for them because they're not happy with that. So you're supposed to be their attorney or advocate. So but one thing I don't want to get detracted from is that it can pull you on an egotistical level two ways, because it's sort of like the old expression, one of the worst expressions in the world is I'm from the government and I'm here to help, right? Well, it's very true. But when it comes to a warranty company, that expression would be, hey, you're a fantastic company. I've heard nothing but fantastic things about you. I'd love for you guys to handle our territory here. Your ego can get you pulled into that. And then they throw you an offer that is not sustainable. Okay. Now, and one thing that we didn't touch on so far, and that I really want to get to, is how insidious that really is from a financial standpoint. Okay. So if your break even, let's just say your break even is, I'm trying to keep the math easy. Break even is $100 and they offer you 90, and you figure, well, I can make it up in volume. You can't make it up in volume, because you're literally, for every call you're running, you're losing $10 that needs to be made up somewhere else. Now, here's the made up somewhere else problem. Here it's $10. Your margin, let's say, is 10%. If you guys really think about this, if you're a Wall Street guru in today's market and you're investing all your money in the stock market and you're trading this and trading that, generally you might be making 10 to 15%, maybe, if you're lucky. And with the market the way it is now, you're not even hitting 10%. Okay. So let's just say, let's call it 10%. I'll give you that. You're making 10%. If you lose, let's say $5,000 providing warranty service because you think you'll make it up in volume, you'll get COD referrals out of it, you'll get extra work out of it. Okay, fine. I lost $5,000 and I have a 10% margin. How much do I have to sell to recover the $5,000? This simple question that I'm posing right now trips up everybody. And it isn't a complicated question. What is 5,000, 10% up? $50,000. Okay. So for those of you guys thinking, oh, it's $5,000, I can make it up in a couple COD sealed systems. Okay. No, mathematically, you have to sell $50,000 to make up the $5,000. And I've seen guys on their balance sheets that never made $50,000 in their lives. So they can't recover. And if this is happening on a monthly basis, where you're losing $5,000 a month, that's $50,000 a month you're going into the hole. And you would have to overcharge your COD customers to pay that deficit. That is what's so insidious about it. It sounds like it's $10. Guys and gals, it's not $10. It's whatever that loss is multiplied by 10. And if there's anything I can get through to you today, I want you to understand that. That's why I always assert you have to be at break even, at least break even to cover your expenses, or above it. Never at or below do you sign those contracts, because you're going to get blindsided by all kinds of wild demands and damage claims and all this other stuff that they try to throw on you. And so you're going to have a lot of insurance calls because they don't follow what they're supposed to. I mean, how many the guys that are doing laundry out there run into dryers that are completely obstructed and they don't heat, not because there's nothing wrong with the dryer. The dryer's working perfectly fine, but the vent is completely clogged. And we all know, that's one of the major causes of house fires. Well, how many cooperative warranty customers are you going to get when you say, you need to get this cleaned out? It's a hazard. And they don't clean it out and they cause a fire.
It's about
I guarantee
2%.
you are going to be named in that. They will name you. They will name the warranty company. They'll name the UPS driver that dropped off the linens. They will name Google because they use Google to call it in. they will name everybody within that lawsuit, and you're going to find yourself in that kind of a claim. Okay. So if you think you go through your day, la-di-da, everything's fine. Those claims are coming your way, and they have to be paid for it. Those we were talking about before, adding CSRs, adding insurance expenses, the administrative duty. What is your time worth when you're dealing with these customer service issues or legal issues? It's worth time where you could be out producing a call. That's always what gets me. It's like, okay, you're doing a job for $90. You could be doing a job for 180 or 200 or 300. You could be, it's not like it's take it or nothing. I'm going to hark back to the days, because most of the guys are younger, and they think of Yellow Pages advertising, which was sort of, it was like crack cocaine of the day for businessmen back in the day. Everybody had to have Yellow Pages. There was no way around it. And it got to the point where it didn't pay. But what I'm saying is that we discovered on a financial analysis, and we were doing this on a national scale to see if it worked. Older populations like it more and all that. But I'm just taking this away from our current discussion to illustrate a point, is that we were able to calculate the cost of acquiring a client through the expense of Yellow Pages. Literally cost $50 more than you were making on the job. So if you had a Yellow Page customer, especially towards the end of it, you literally were losing $50 on every call you ran that came from you through the Yellow Pages. So you could literally just stay home and make more money. Actually going to work cost you money. You needed to close the doors, turn the phones off. And that's a hard thing for people to learn when that was the only advertising form in our industry. That was it. So this is a similar kind of thing, is that I don't want people to get overly attracted to a third-party warranty where you think you can't survive. You can't run the calls. I've got all these texts. How do I get the business? You get caught into that. You could be delivering services that cost you more than it is to deliver. Now, there are third-party warranties that are wonderful companies they're very effective. They're not like COD customers. I'm not going to, float that boat. But the point is there are good third-party warranties that do recognize the value of the service they're trying to provide and do give you a fair wage, as long as you know what it is. They do exist, and I work with plenty of them. Okay. So I want to make sure that I don't want to cast that, okay, I never touch it and there's no way it's ever going to work, so I'm just going to walk away from it. That isn't true. Yeah. That's why I want you to always know your numbers. So if you know where your break even is with your profit and something comes in at that point or above it, well, then of course it's a fit for you wherever your territory is. One of the things that I find, and Zach gets a little bit of this too, because he's in the territory, where those of us in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, they come to us with what a national average cost is. Well, and what's your point? It doesn't affect me that way. My costs of running my business here in Chicago are not the same as they were in St. Louis or Birmingham, Alabama, or Kansas City. Now, I'm not putting, those are wonderful cities. I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying the cost of operating in those cities isn't reflected the way it is here. And that's why I think it's important that everybody look at their own numbers, because with your numbers and your costs of doing business, it may be a perfect fit. Hey, this is awesome. This works for me. And that's what you have to stick to. Take the emotions away from it. It's just like if you were reviewing staff, you have to use key performance indicators, KPIs, because you have to look at something very straightforward, very dry and concrete when you're comparing something. And you can get caught up like with staff when you're reviewing a technician and their performance. You can have somebody that's very funny, very entertaining, eclectic, and all that, and but performs terribly. And then you get a guy that's a little crabby and, isn't smiles and jokes and all that, but outperforms everybody. And so if you take it on how their personality is reflected to you, you would think one is performing better than the other if you don't look at the concrete nature of it. As it is with the reps and third-party warranty. You can have a rep that is funny, engaging, takes you out to lunch and all that. And they're like your golfing buddy. Oh, this guy's great. This guy's great. Well, but when you look at the numbers, it doesn't really pan out, right? So you want to make sure you always look at the numbers to validate your own argument or challenge your own argument. As Mark Twain said, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. And what we're talking about is statistics, right?
We've had a couple good questions that kind of highlight the things you're talking about. So Andrew goes, I'm not educated in business arts, shooting for a certain dollar amount in profit, which appears to be about 40% profit. Is there a golden percentage that should be a goal? And basically what you just said is no. Figure out what your numbers are. You have to know your numbers. There's no other way other than looking at the balance sheet and understanding that our margin, not our percentage, our margin is only 10%.
Correct. Right. And margin versus markup, as Zach knows, this is one of my classes. We go into a whole discussion about what margin is versus what markup is. And markup is the percentage. And that's an old school way of looking at it. And I can assure you, there is nobody legitimately in business, and I've even said this, I almost do it in a provocative way. Grown-ups use margin. Let that sink in, right? If you're using a percentage, you're not a grown-up yet.
Andrew, and I know because Andrew's in his infant stage of growing his business and stuff like that. It works now, because you don't have much overhead. So those numbers work now, but it's not going to work when you go and grow and go up a scale. But if you are content on being a one-man show, which there's plenty of them out there,
absolutely,
and you can go directly off of that number. You don't really have to dive deep into your numbers because you are whatever you want to make profit-wise and whatever you want your bills to be. That's all you care about. It's very cut and dry and very simple. It's just when you're trying to grow, that's when things are gonna. If you keep going off of just that percentage, you're really gonna fall, flat on your face.
I would also make the argument that even a one-man show has a misconception of what their expenses truly are, and they certainly have a misconception of what their billing hours available are, and they don't understand that. And that is something that's a very difficult concept to wrap around their head. Again, they're living 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, but they cannot bill 365 days a year. And that concept is very difficult to get through to people. Even when we talk about the difference between billing time and material versus flat rate, we get the challenges and the arguments about why that is. And the fallacy when you're using time and material is you don't understand you've lost 1/3 to half of your year in billing hours. You don't realize it. And mathematically, that's how you make that argument, even to yourself.
And that's why the companies that do hourly, they have a minimum because, they're going to say, I have a 2-hour minimum. So if I come to your house and it only takes me 30 minutes, you're still getting billed for those 2 hours. That's why you've really seen hourly kind of go away, unless you're in the commercial side of things. Is really the only industry that really bills hourly anymore. At least in appliances and HVAC and stuff like that. It's really just commercial based that you're doing hourly, and they have their minimum set up because they know what their break even is.
Yes. And also, to be fair, you should explain why there's the difference. There's an actual reason behind it, guys. So those that aren't in commercial don't know why that is still there and why there's resistance to it.
For at least for the points that I know is with commercial, there's just a lot of gray area on how long something takes. Some stuff you have to pull a ladder off your truck. You're having to deal with downtown commercial parking and stuff, so they're getting charged porthole to porthole.
Maintenance guy doesn't show up. You're waiting on a fire permit. You're waiting on, you name it. There's a million variables in commercial that it's impossible to do flat rate in that type of scenario.
It just can't be done. You could be waiting for a building engineer to unlock an electrical panel just to kill the breaker.
And you could be waiting hours for that. Like I know guys that have literally waited hours because the guy was on call, even though it was scheduled. He went home and didn't come back to unlock the freaking panel, and the guy waited 2 hours.
And then say you're working on it. You're working on a commercial kitchen, and you're at a restaurant, and they're working, and you're trying to work around them. That slows you down. You just can't. It's not a customer where you go in and they're out of your way, and you're working. You're having to work around multiple people, which is going to slow you down. There's way too many variables.
You also use the term port to port. So to clarify that means you're getting paid to drive to the job site and back from the job site to your office. So those are things in a flat rate residential market. You don't get paid for that. You're getting a flat 120, which is supposed to include all the travel, all the everything. That cannot be done in commercial. It's also not done in biomedical, by the way. Biomedical is very similar to commercial in terms of the bill.
There's two other comments that actually tie very nicely together. And they actually tie into one of the most impactful stories that I think you shared in your class, James. And so I'm going to highlight those real quick as we begin to wrap up. So Dan says, oh my God, this is what my company is going through right now. That's when you were talking about just getting buried in a landslide of warranty, just losing money, bleeding that money. And Saul says this topic, no one really likes to talk about it because it states you're profitable, but most people don't want to see or hear it. The warranty companies are out there. Oh yeah, we're giving you money. We're giving you work. You're profitable, but it's a load of crap. You shared a story about, I believe it was your dad.
Yes,
correct?
Exactly. I did.
And this story, just like I was in tears by the time you finished the story, because like Dan, I felt every bit of this. So why don't you share that story with us?
Well, what I walked it through, and sometimes it's more impactful when you see the numbers, but my father had represented a company for about 18 years. And it was always that old bragging rights thing, right? I'm factory authorized for this. Now, what I walked through was he had at least 7 employees committed to this company for about 18 years. And we thought everything was great and everything was fine. Well, my father had a lot of financial problems that drew me back into the industry. And now this industry has got me stuck. I ain't not going anywhere. It dragged me back in and won't let me go. So here I am. But anyway, what we had discovered in one of the first classes that I ever took, and that's why it's so important for me that anybody that's learning this, they should attend my class or at least a similar class, because it was one of my first USA type programs, which was held by NARDA back in the day. But anyway, I learned how to do my cost of doing business. And in the middle of the class, I noticed that I was at 35 and my cost of doing business was 66. And I thought I was making some math errors. And some of the people around me said, hey, let's go have a beer after class, because we don't really talk numbers there, right? We talk concepts, percentages, and issues. So I discovered after class, this was later on when we're all networking, that my math was 100% correct. My father had committed himself to a contract of $35 an hour for this job, and he was costing him 66. So he was losing all that money. I added it up just very simply. How many years? 18 years, 7 guys times the number of tickets that he had run. And in short, it turned out that he had lost $18 million in that period of time. $18 million. Now that was in loss. Now, mind you, before I told you at a 10% margin, what he would need to recover, 18 million. $180 million is the deficit that he created for himself, because my father, who was an incredible engineer, knew how to fix things. Like I said, he's one of those guys, vice grips, flashlight in his teeth, and could just rebuild a compressor practically. Was able to do that, but he didn't know his numbers at all. My father fell into a stroke, languished for 3 weeks, and died of pulmonary embolism. The time I find out about his financials was at his wake, when his attorneys showed up, now free of client privilege, and told me how bad it was. They were literally this Department of Revenue was locking the door that morning, and I had to get a court injunction and rebuild from that. That's how much of a deficit. And I didn't know any of this had happened, and I didn't even know how to calculate this. I'm college educated. I have a degree in psychology, history, and political science, but I didn't know this math. And thank God I met these wonderful people in these organizations, like the guys here, that are trying to educate people and save them from that kind of pain. It was unbelievable. And there was no doubt in my mind, my father knew how bad it was in his soul, although he may not have understood it mathematically and from a business angle. That killed him. These people underpaying him killed him. He was 56 years old. He was drafted by the Chicago Bears. So he was, an athlete. There was nothing wrong with him medically. You can't put yourself under that kind of stress. And so he had $180 million of stress on him that he couldn't even see. He was blind to it. He was blind to the 18 that he'd lost. And it was horrific. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about carrying this knowledge to everybody that will listen to me, so that I don't want this to happen to any of you. I really don't want it to happen.
That's heavy, and it's exactly what this industry can bring. If you're setting yourself up, on your business, I'm not doing it the right way. That's why, we say it all the time, you can be a great tech, but that doesn't mean you're a great business owner. It's a huge leap into becoming a business owner. We don't want to scare you off of like, don't touching any warranty companies or anything like that, because there's a place for them. And I think I would like to kind of go more in depth on that, on how, because we're getting close to wrapping up, is how to utilize home warranty companies so they don't, make you get to this stressful level of not making money. If you know your cost of doing business, there's a place for them in a large business too. I know particularly, like, whenever I utilize them is when you're growing, you have a new technician. They're great to go ahead and throw them out on those warranty calls, first, because you can easily pre-order stuff and stuff like that, where it kind of makes it a little bit easier because you have a little bit of padding, because it's not a COD paying customer. So you can utilize them in building up technicians' confidence and giving them calls without them having to run your COD based customers, where they're paying you for a service and say they accidentally misdiagnose something. It's a little bit easier to kind of take care of them on the warranty side. On your guys' businesses, what do you think is the best way to utilize these home warranty companies? Because there is a place, in business for them.
I'll let you answer first, James.
Well, I always go by the numbers. So it has to make sense from the numbers. So it has to be above break even. It has to be at that profit margin. So you have to be able to make money. Otherwise, forget it. Another thing that you do is, in terms of the application, you can control your percentages. As I mentioned before, you want to be at like about 25-30%, right? Okay. So it's like, okay, I don't want to exceed 30% of my business in warranty. How do I literally control that? It's one thing to look at it after the fact and go, oh, geez, and I did 90% of my work was warranty, when you're looking at your numbers. But it's at the intake that you control it. So the one way that you would do that is, if you're scheduling yourself, we'll use 10. Okay. If you're scheduling yourself 10 calls, you don't want any more than 3 of them or 4 of them to be a warranty call. That's how you control it on a day-to-day basis at the intake. So that leaves you room for 6 CODs, right? So that's where you control it at the intake, not in the rear view mirror, right? Another thing that you can utilize them for is in between stops. So you don't use them as what we would consider your core business. Your core business should be what is profitable. So, and the filler business is stuff that you like between calls. So you may have 3 CODs and a couple warranties. You do those warranty stops in between the CODs that you've already booked and scheduled. So you control it through routing, control it through intake. So it becomes a filler part of your business. So the downtime or the slow period, you can be filled with that type of work. But you don't allow it to become your core business, because if it becomes your core business, you're in trouble.
Yep.
Some of the business books out there, From Good to Great, one of the big concepts they talk about is by being profitable is simple analysis. It sounds easy enough, but in practicality, it's not. Is you want to find out what you're doing that you're making money at. Then you have to figure out what you're losing money at. And then you have to stop doing what you're losing money at. Stop doing it, because time is not infinite. It's finite. You only have
and
so many.
Hopefully not too late.
Yeah. Well, right now is the best time. Right now, act on it. Like, for example, today, the guys that haven't done their cost of doing business, if they leave this and haven't done it, I would say that's the next thing you do today. Do not close your eyes today on this day until you've done your cost of doing business. Know where those numbers are. But the point that I wanted to finish with that is know what your profit is, what you're doing that's making money, what you're losing money at. Stop doing it. That allows you the time to do more of what is profitable. And unless you stop doing it, you're never going to be profitable, because you're never going to have the time. You're going to be just running around super busy, not understanding where the hole in the boat is. And you created the hole in the boat. So, there's a lot of failures in plans, I suppose, but the biggest problem is the failure to plan, not the failure of the plan. So the first step, always math. And I'm not talking about, a calculus either. We're talking about simple subtraction and addition.
And another good strategy to do with home warranty or just warranty companies in general is, say you have your territory is like a 30-mile radius, do the warranty companies with a 10-mile radius, condense yourself a little bit more.
Right.
You don't have to take over this crazy territory and be like, hey, we need help in the whole metro area. You can say, no, I'll take this small chunk, and it kind of condenses your schedule a little bit, which is going to help out how many calls you can get knocked out too. You don't have to accept, a massive territory. I always say go small, especially with warranties, just keep it close to the shop. That's going to be a good strategy for you to do if you want to accept warranty companies. There used to be gigs out there, that they would always push, hey, do warranty companies because they're going to turn into COD customers and stuff like that. And that's as my business has grown, the loyalty of customers has become less and less and less, because it is so easy. Everyone has a phone in their pocket. They can jump on Google and they can find whatever they need in an instant. So they're not thinking, oh, what about that magnet that I have on that refrigerator? Let me call them back. There, people are go. So that's not a good strategy, and that they'll push that like crazy, like, oh, well, you're doing it cheaper now because you're gonna grow your customer base, and it doesn't always work like that. The percentages of that is really, really low. I would say the last time that it made sense for warranty was, and my dad had it set up on his business, is he was LG and Samsung authorized. And this was at a time where you could not get parts for LG and Samsung unless you're authorized. So COD base, you got a lot of revenue because they had a call, the manufacturer, and the manufacturer sat there and gave him the COD calls. They're not set up like that anymore. They don't have the benefits anymore like that.
But
Right.
You still have to control it, like James was saying, because otherwise they'll run. I mean, so like I shared, like the time to do it is now, right, James? That's what James was saying. I was dead before I started. We were 70% with the warranty company that neither James nor I really likes dealing with. Yeah. And in the time it took for me to meet the people I needed to meet to make the pivots that I needed to make, the Titanic was already sinking. It was gone long before it started. James and I have spent hours just like going through, like, here's the scenarios. I was dead before I started. And that's why I was so passionate to have James on today to share with you because I don't want to see anyone else go through this, right? Like Rob Jones and I have kidded about like doing a podcast about the things that you shouldn't do in business. Not doing your cost of doing business right now. That is the number one thing that you shouldn't do. Get out there and get your cost of doing business done right now, today, because every day that goes by, it puts you deeper in the hole, and it is not a good place to be. It is not a good place to be at all.
Extremely stressful. Yeah, it'll keep you up at night. You know, you may not even know it though until it hits you all at once. You know, because things will crumble down. You know, you'll get to a point like, whew, and it's a huge weight on your shoulders. So, you know, I would highly recommend.
And real quick, yes, he is. He will be teaching at ASTI. That's actually where I took the class, was back in January. Even though he's only 30 miles north of me, I didn't know him until I flew to Florida and took a class.
Yeah. ASTI is in San Antonio on the Riverwalk, February 1 through the 5th. So lots of classes to fill there. But I would completely back Zach right now about the doing your cost of doing business. We can't emphasize it enough. And it's a good news, bad news thing. If you do your numbers, you'll learn today you're losing money, or that you're making money. That could be a good news. You don't know, but you need to know what that is and then stop doing it. You have an obligation to yourself, to your family, to your spouse, your children, if you have them, and to your staff and your employees to be profitable. You owe that obligation to yourself. Yep. Don't neglect yourself.
So Elliot had a good question. What is the cost of doing business formula? I'll let you take over that, James, because we all.
Well, UASA has a calculator within the body of on their website, so it's free to the members, and so that it can kind of walk you through it. Now, it is a little confusing, so if you're trying to walk through it on your own, you can follow those guidelines as best you can as they're explained, but it is confusing, and that is literally one of the classes I do. I will take you on that formula that's right on the USAS, United Appliance Servicers Association site, and I will walk you through the format. And I also explain to you what's going into each one of the modules. It's basically sort of a fancy spreadsheet, really, and you're able to plug in your own numbers based on that. So that's one source that you could go to, become a member, and you have access to that. And I think for a while they had it you could just access it right on their website. So I would go to that site. There's a lot of different theories about how to do it. I think that's probably one of the better ones. But having somebody guide you through that and explain it so you understand the rationale behind each step is very helpful. And this can get very emotional. And so what I'm trying to do is take the emotions out of it so that you look at it as just hard, cold numbers. The numbers tell the tale. And they're not manipulated. They're straightforward. And that's why it's all relatively above board when you have the explanations, what went into every step. Why did we do that? Getting back to the formula, you see it, there's things that you have to plug in yourself that are in yellow highlights. The formula does its own calculations for you. So there are places for you to plug in your own numbers. And the key to plugging your own numbers off your P&L statement, your profit and loss statement, is be honest with yourself about those costs. Don't try to make them lower than they really are, and don't make them higher than they really are. You want an accurate representation of what it should be, because when people do that, they find their cost of doing business is 80 or 90 or 100 or 150. It varies a great deal for everybody. That's why talking in terms of like what your rate should be on a national level is not helpful at all.
Here's a perfect example. You and I we're 30 miles apart, and our cost of doing business are
not
completely different. They're
right.
They're not even in the ballpark of each other. right?
Correct.
Like, so that's why it's important to know your own numbers, right? Like, so Maurice was sharing, well, the warranty company that he works with is 120 plus 50 maintenance fee. Number one, not every warranty company is that way. Number two, in my area, it doesn't matter. That would not suffice for my cost of doing business. Every business is unique. That was the point of what we're bringing to you today. Some warranty companies will work for you, some will not work for you. If you're in an area where it does make sense, great. If like Doug was saying, you have 16 technicians and you want to send a green tech out and you're doing it in between calls, that can work for you. There's so many variables that are unique to your own business. But until you do the cost of doing business, you don't know what's going to fit your model. You just you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And what when you do it, you'll know in your own heart. You've already seen it. You did your own numbers. So you'll know. You can make a non-emotional decision. This is a good deal for me, or this is a bad deal for me. But one thing, and I earlier on in the podcast, I used the term insidious. I'll explain what I mean now, because this kind of points it out. You will find, and when we analyze this is where when I didn't use that term lightly. I meant it. They have MBAs running around. They know you better than you know yourself. And what I have found, is typically, if you find your break even is 135, your company is paying you 130. If you find your cost of doing business is 120, they're paying you 115. Just below your break even. And you haven't even shared your numbers with them. They haven't seen your profit and loss, but it is frightening how they are right there. And they're not $10 or $20 below it. Now, some of them are, they're that outrageous. That's true. But it's just enough
in our area.
Yeah, well, but it can be just enough below your ability to survive, so that they feed off of that for 2-3 years. Then you're done. They move on to the next one. Then they're done. They move on to the next one. So they don't make it quite that obvious. And they know, like Zach said before, they know you better than you know yourself. And it's frightening. But I have seen that consistency. And those that are listening here, I'm sure you're going to find, oh, wow, it's close. It's not that far off. No, that is not the takeaway. The takeaway is not, oh, it's close. It's like, oh my God, they almost know exactly what my numbers should be. And takeaway, they didn't pay you what you should have been being paid. Those are the bad actors and the bad partners. Now, there are some out there that are good partners, and you'll find that they are paying you a profitable wage. Maybe not, you're not getting rich off of it, but they're paying you something profitable that's sustainable. Everybody likes the word sustainable. Well, I think you should be sustainable. Your company should be sustainable. Your family should be sustainable, because you're making profit and you can pay your bills. You can take your kids on vacation. You can get major medical coverage, where it's like, well, I can't afford major medical coverage for my own, so I'm on my wife's. And we hear that all the time at the conferences. I don't need that. Well, my father-in-law owns the building, so I don't have rent. Great. And why are you passing along that lack of expense to these people for no reason? That happens to be your benefit, but somebody's paying for it, even if it's your father-in-law that isn't charging you rent. What has that got to do with the cost? So I don't understand that rationale ever. I really don't get it. I don't need major medical coverage because my wife's a nurse. She's got it. Great. Why isn't it in your P&L anyway? Somebody's got to have it. You're entitled to it, aren't you? Aren't you entitled to a vacation? For crying out loud. You're entitled to these things just as a human being. You're not a slave. Don't treat yourself that way. Hold your head up high. This is a skilled trade, a sophisticated industry. You got to know electrical, you got to know gas, you got to know fuel, you got to know mechanical. There's so many, carpentry, everything that goes into it. We're like an all-in-one when it comes to a skilled trade. Don't diffuse that or put that down. You're worth it. Look at your numbers.
And I want to wrap up with this on that topic. I mean, $600 a day. I don't know. What's your cost of doing business? Do you know your cost of doing business, Maurice? It could make sense for you. It really could. We're not saying it can't. But if you don't know your numbers, it doesn't make sense. If you don't know them, it's pointless. It's small thinking, and it can end up in a dangerous trap. That's the point. It's not what you are making or aren't making. It's, do you know what you're making? Do you know what your cost is? And then you can make judgments. It's not emotional. It's not a number figure. It's not, like Andrew said, a percentage figure. It's what makes sense for you to make a profit. What does it cost you to do business, and how much margin do you need to go on a vacation, to have medical, to buy that new car in 5 years, to buy a 8 flat and have an extra revenue stream? What does it cost to have that kind of profit margin? If you don't have your numbers, I don't care what you're seeing on the spreadsheet. It doesn't matter. You could be bleeding money like his father and not know it. That's the point. That's what we're encouraging you to today, is go out and figure out what your numbers are. Like the real cold, hard cost of doing business numbers. And if you haven't done it, make sure you attend one of the classes, because I'm telling you, it is freaking eye-opening when you actually walk through it and remove the emotion from it and just look at the cold, hard numbers. It'll blow your mind. It will blow your mind.
There's one that Elliot just did. Can you survive doing 100% warranty? I'll say it's not a good idea to keep your eggs all in one basket. Even if it's 5 different warranty companies, they're always going to get to a point where, they're right below your cost of doing business. Like James was saying, they're not, they would be too stupid to sit there and offer you this big amount of money, and you're getting not rich off of it, but really making a huge profit. They're not in business for doing that. They're too smart. That's the reason why they've been in business for many, many years, and you've only been in business for a year. So you haven't learned from your mistakes, and that's what they count on, is a gullible new company that they can take advantage of to make their numbers better, so they're more profitable.
There's a reason 2 international conglomerates have bought out the warranty company that James and I don't like. They've been bought out twice. That doesn't happen for no reason.
Yeah.
They're making money.
Yeah. All the lights in Las Vegas casinos are not there because they're losing money. Okay. Their balance sheets. Ironically, here we're looking at profit and loss statements. Those profit and loss statements on this company that he's alluding to, we're doing pretty doggone good. And so a conglomerate came in and said, hey, you're doing pretty good. This is an investment. And this is what I'm talking about with the investment. If you know what your cost of doing business is and you're not making money, stop doing it. You could literally, and I've said this in my class, instead of buying a truck for $50,000, why don't you go out and buy Amazon? You'll get a 12, 15% return, and you don't even do anything. You just watch it rise in the stock market. That's it. You're not rolling around on a floor. You're not cutting your hands using super glue to seal it up. You're not getting into arguments with CSRs and clients. You're not filling up your car at $6 a gallon. You're not getting shaken down by the city of Chicago for tow zone and this, that, and the other thing. You're not going through any of that. You just called your broker. You bought some stock and you're making money. If you're not making money. Now, to answer the questions, I don't want anybody to get, you're talking about 100% warranty. I don't want you to get hung up on my concept there about it shouldn't exceed 30%. Okay. The reason for that is because it's usually overall, they're bad agreements in general. However, if your warranty company is making you money, you know your cost of doing business, and you're making a margin that you find acceptable. Yeah, you can do 100% warranty. Absolutely. That's what we're saying. If you have a warranty partner that is paying you a profitable, It's not going to be filthy rich. You're not going to be having 40% margins. It's not going to be the case. But the point is if the ink is in the black, yeah, you can do 100% and make money. That's fine. The problem is in aggregate, they're not.
So, and also, those terms can change at any time. You can get a new rep in, and it completely flips you upside down. So the reason why I didn't really like the warranty companies is because just the lack of control. You are working for someone. Yes, you're the business owner, but you still basically have a boss when you're dealing with the home warranty company. I didn't really like that lack of control, the lack of walking on eggshells. Like, hey, it can change at any second. You can, and that's why I set my business up to where I don't have to depend on them. If I get a new rep and I don't like them, or they're coming at numbers too low, they're gone.
Right.
And I'm still sustainable. It's not ruining and throwing a wrinkle in my business. If I cut one off, that's another downside of the warranty companies is you're not your owner. You're going again. You have a boss that you have to answer to, and if they don't like your numbers, they could turn you off immediately. And can you survive? Yes or no? Is your business set up to survive if that happens? Because that's one thing that you have to account for. Is it will happen? Is can you sustain it?
If you guys missed it in the beginning, the scripture that I opened with was Matthew 6:24. You cannot serve two masters. You can't.
Yep.
That's exactly what Travis just said. Like it's not possible. They are your boss. They are, whether you realize it or not, the end user, the person who paid for the home warranty is not your customer. They are not your customer at all. They are not the boss. You are not there serving them, unfortunately. The warranty customer, the warranty company, they are your customer. They are the boss. They are the one that is in charge. And so you have to, what are your values in that? Beyond just cost of doing business, what are your values? If you're out there to serve customers and you want to love customers well, I'm telling you, COD is going to be a much better avenue because you're in control of how you treat them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a message from JoJo at 7 this morning. She said, they said, what about property management account? That's completely different. You're in control on property management of what your rates are going to be, at least all the ones that I've dealt with. You are dropping off an envelope, on, hey, these are my rates. This is the discount you're going to get because you're a property management company, is completely different because you are in control on that contract, where the home warranty is in control of the contract and they're giving it to you and you have to go ahead and sign it. And the numbers are whatever they want it to be. Property management, you're still charging them as a COD customer, but you're giving them a discount, which you're still way above your cost of doing business. So you're profitable at any given time.
And so Kirk's, I mean, that works. Charge enough money to not be busy every day, or to be, I think you meant to be busy all day, every day. I mean, that works unless you're dealing with a warranty company who's undercutting you. And that's the point. We don't know. These are individual bases. And I'm going to go back to it again. Do your cost of doing business, because you don't know what you need until you've done your cost of doing business. Like, if you take nothing else away from this, go do your cost of doing business and be honest with the numbers. Don't fudge the numbers. And you're going to know if you're in the black or if you're in the red. 100%.
Yeah. And that's not effective. Just the cost of doing business doesn't apply only for warranty. It applies for your COD rates. How do you know to apply a fair and profitable rate even to your COD customers? You don't want to be overcharging the customers. You'll price yourself out of the market. So if the idea is just, I'm going to have a huge margin and I'm going to make a lot of money in COD, in a short period of time you will, but the word will get out there that you're overcharging what the market will bear. And so you don't know what the market will bear until you look at your numbers. So you want to be fair and equitable to all your customers. COD, property management, through warranty and third-party warranty. You'll have all kinds of different clients. So you need to know this, just period, just alone. And aside from this, you need to know this if you want to get a loan. You want to walk in and go, hey, I'd like an equity line credit. I want to buy a new truck. If you're selling to municipalities, for example, you don't walk into a municipality and they don't cut you a check for the service call. If they buy a bunch of product from you, you have to front that. You're COD, so you might be carrying a note of, let's say, $50,000 for equipment you bought and provided to, a fire department, police department, or a school district. They're not going to cut that check for 120 days. You're going to get the money, but you need the gap for it. And the way to make that argument with your banker is to walk in. Yeah, I know what my cost of doing business is. Because if you don't, they're going to look at you like, hit the pavement, pal. You have no business plan. You don't have any idea. You're flying blind. You have no idea what you're talking about. And they're not going to give you those lines. And trust me, there are going to be times in your life and the cycles throughout the year, January, February, and March, is not the same as July, August, right? So you have the peaks and valleys within your business. There might be new equipment that you want to buy, like aside from a truck, a lift truck, new computers that you have to upgrade. So there's lots of reasons for this aside from what we're talking about. But again, be it COD, warranty, property management, all of it, it's the same. Know where your numbers are so that you can be profitable, and don't go crazy with the profit. It will come back to haunt you. I guarantee you. So if you're trying to get a 40% margin in a service market, good luck, brother. That's not, again, it's not sustainable. It's just not, because people will catch on pretty doggone quickly.
And I want to finish with this question, and then James, we're definitely going to have you back sometime. I always enjoy having conversations with you. It's great to be here. It's always fun. But so finishing with this question, would you have to be in business for a while, a year? He's brand new. I don't know that he's been in business for a whole year yet to do the cost of doing business is his question. Well, do you have to be in business for more than a year?
No, you don't. Because your projections, you can do your profit and loss on a monthly basis. So every month you're going to get that. Okay. Now what you would have to do is convert it to annual. So you would make a projection. So if you, for example, if you had 6 months of stats to work with, you could just double it. That gives you what your annual projection would be. If you've got 3/4 of a year, you can project it that way. Now, I want to with those.
You wouldn't truly double it though, would you? Because we just got done saying that January, like certain months could be
right. Well, that's my proviso. Is because annually you would go in our business, you would go through cycles where your first quarter is going to be lower than your second quarter, and your third quarter is going to be higher probably than most of them, and your fourth quarter, because of the holidays, tends to be one of your best quarters, right? So it depends. It depends. Are you refrigeration heavy or are you cooking heavy? It depends. So that's why having an annual cycle is a good projection. And so when you do take only a few months out of a year or a couple of quarters out of a year, just remember that those are fuzzy numbers, very, very fuzzy numbers. And if you're using first and second quarter for that analysis, those are probably going to be lower, way lower than you would anticipate. That's all I'm saying.
It can help you make a pivot, but then make sure that after the fiscal year, whatever your fiscal year is, that you go back and do it again and see how accurate those projections were.
It's everly changing, and it changes on the market that you're in. I know like the Austin market that I was in, there was a lot of peaks and valleys. I'm in Denver, and it's pretty steady across the board, which is really weird for me. But I like it. But every market is different, and your numbers are always going to change. I know just recently, like because of COVID, there's no new appliances. Your numbers are going to be different from those couple years with everything going wrong with COVID than what they are now. And they're more so evening out because products are more available for customers to want to purchase, new units. So instead of, your walk rate is just going to be a little bit higher, where you're just collecting your diagnostic, because people have that option to purchase a new unit and get it within a week instead of it being 6 months on back order.
It is probably going to take all of 2023 for everyone to get an accurate new financial picture. it doesn't mean that you can't, like we're saying, make these small pivots and kind of get some rough projections. But after all the crap that we've been through the last 3 years, it is probably going to take all of 2023 to figure out what the new normal is. I am almost 100% positive that it is going to take all of 2023 for everyone to kind of figure out, like,
and then it's going to change.
Where are we?
Yeah, and then it will change again because we're projected to go through a little bit of a downspout, on the economy, which normally that is a good thing for the appliance repair industry. Recessions are good because people don't want to purchase new units, but your numbers are always going to be changing. So just know them, so you can make those changes. Inflation with gas and stuff like that. Everyone had to kind of pivot, short term on gas just going through the roof, along with and that was just causing everything else to raise in price too, but you can make these small pivots, but at least you have a baseline, your numbers. So you're not going to be that off and you're not playing that much catch up whenever those numbers do change.
Well, thank you guys. I am now 25 minutes late for a meeting, but it was well worth being late for this meeting because this conversation was awesome. And James, we are going to have you back again. You have just in the last year become such a good friend and such a good partner in business. Like we so appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to share with the community at large.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to being back.
All right, guys, you have a great day. Tomorrow is Freestyle Friday. Ask us anything. TK and EJ will be dropping some crazy questions. Who knows? Bring your questions. Be ready to go. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Bye, guys.